Alright, so the other side of oblique triangles is what happens if you only know all three sides or you know two sides in the given angle. So remember what I said about telling the difference between the two. Notice that for the law of cosines, each ends with an S. Side, 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 angle, side. So I don't have an A on either end, and if I did, then I'd know I have to use the law of sines. Here's your formulas for the law of cosines. Notice that it's all about looking for a side. So when you have side, 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 you have to do a little bit of algebra, some inverse cosine to find your angle. But you start with a squared, then that means that I'm summing the other two angles squared, subtracting them multiplied by 2, and it's the cosine of its opposite angle. You'll find that a lot of the law of cosines is plug and chug. There is no ambiguous case like there is with the law of sines, so it does make it a lot nicer to work with. In this case, you were given the two sides, but because they're equal, then that tells you that their corresponding angles are equal. So given that the first angle was 6 degrees, you subtract that from 180, divide by 2, so that's how you get the other two. You're going to find that once you get these triangles in a spot where you can use the law of sines, it's a lot faster. So that's what happened here. As soon as I determined that these two angles have to be equal, again, because their corresponding sides are equal, which makes it an isosceles triangle, then I can go to the law of sines. I don't know side C. That's the only thing I'm looking for. So to the sine of 6, and then just pick one of the sides and its angle to get that missing side. For this one, you're given side, angle, side. And so the first thing that we're going to do is find the missing side. Okay, so here's our formula. We plug in the sum of the squares of the two given sides minus 2 times their product times the cosine of that given angle. So we're just plugging this in your calculator as it sits. I don't have to do anything else, and I get that side A is 11.07. And now I have to find either one of the other angles. Obviously, I don't have to find both, because if I know 2, then I subtract that sum from 180. So again, I'm at a spot where I can use the law of sines, and I'm going to. So I have side to the sine of 127, as 3 is to the sine of this missing angle. Cross multiply like you did in the last section to get the value for angle B, although you had to do inverse sine on this. And then you subtract that sum from 180, and you get that the other angle is 40.5 degrees. In this case, I have to find A, so we're given all three sides. And so when you're given all three sides, then you want to find one of the angles first. And here I've just chosen to find angle A first. That would be after I found it, by the way. So I'm plugging it in. A is 3, so it's 9 squared. B is 5. C is 6. Minus 2 times the product of B times C. So just be careful when you're plugging these in to get the cosine of A. You're subtracting these two from both sides. Don't screw up the algebra. And now you're dividing by the product of negative 2 times 5 times 6. So notice that's what's in your denominator. For me, on the calculator, I wrote this out to show you that all you have to do is write inverse cosine, watch your parentheses, put the numerator in, and then put the parentheses around the denominator and close it. Biggest thing is don't forget that negative that's in front of the 2. And then you'll get angle A. And from there, you can do the law of sines because you have enough information that allows you to be able to find that next angle. And then once I find one of them, I can just subtract from 180 to find that missing third side. So I think you'll find that as you walk through these examples, that's basically what's going on. I'm using the law of cosines one time to help me figure out the one side. And then the next section, the area of a triangle is just how we use the law of cosines to find it, you have Heron's formula. And my daughter's taken the ACT a couple times. And so with each practice one, because you know you guys always want to get the best score, she gets these problems. And so we've gone over Heron's formula for things like that. I remember when I took my GRE, it was on there too. So if I know all three sides of a triangle, I can use Heron's formula. And here it is. It's S, and then these quantities, I'm not going to read it to you, where S is 1/2 the perimeter of the triangle. And so it's all about, did I plug it in right? Okay, so you're given three sides of the triangle. Obviously, the first thing you're going to have to do is find S, which is half the perimeter, and then you plug that in under the radical and subtracting each side from S, multiplying it, and then you get your value for A. And then here's another example. Biggest thing is watching those units, whatever it is. Make sure that you're labeling these problems. And then if you know side angle side, it's another way to do 1/2 base times the height. Because remember in the last section when we talked about the law of sines, that we identified that the height was B times the sine of A, or A times the sine of B. So here you're taking 1/2, your base is C, and your height here is B times the sine of A. So if I don't specifically know the height, then I do have a way in order to find the area using these laws. So in this case, you're given side angle side. So if you were given this problem on your graduate exams and you didn't know the height, then you would at least have this formula where you would know that you could take 1/2 times the base times the other side times the sine of 10, and you'll get your area. And then you guys did area of a sector a while back. And so just remember that when you're working these problems, that theta has to be in radians. And so when you are given 1 in degrees, you want to do your multiplier so that you have the value in radians. All right. So quite a few formulas. Like I said, you don't have to memorize these for the test, but just take your time through the homework, and even though it's not very much, you definitely don't want to leave it again for the day before.